Hello everyone, I'm Jen Urig, and I'm here with my audience. I'm going to be telling you a family history story about my grandfather, Carl Peterson, and his service in Korea. Carl was drafted into the armed forces right out of college. He and his college buddies had heard talk of the war in Korea, and a few of them actually dropped out and begun training for a specific division of the armed forces, a place where they wanted to serve. But Carl decided to take his chances and see if he could avoid the draft altogether and finish his degree. He was drafted into the infantry regiment, the 25th Division, 27th Regiment, the Wolfhounds. And when he was sent to Korea there, he was under the impression that he was going to be in the signal corps, not actually fighting. Unfortunately, when he got off the boat, he was given a Browning automatic rifle and sent right to the front lines, where he spent most of his service in Korea, well, the first part of it at least, in trenches dodging enemy fire day and night. It was especially interesting in one instance where his squad, which was repairing barbed wire along the front of the American trenches, they got caught outside their trench in the no man's land between the American and the Koreans, because their commanding officer, who had the passphrase that allowed them to get safely back into their trench, they were working off a passphrase system because it was too dark at the time they were out there. Their commanding officer was shot, and no one else knew the passphrase, so Carl and the rest of his squad had to spend the night just pinned down in the no man's land until daylight came and they could safely get back into their own trench. Needless to say, this was an incredibly traumatic experience for Carl. He wrote letters home to his new wife, my grandmother, Billie Jo Peterson, and to my great-grandfather, Tor. The letters he wrote to Billie Jo Peterson, his new wife, were of the typical sort you might expect of, oh, everything's fine, I'm doing well here, how are you, sort of thing. He didn't want to worry her at all. The letters he wrote to my great-grandpa Tor, on the other hand, those were the letters that contained stuff more like, this is hell, this is awful, this is a nightmare out here, I want to get out of here, I want to go back home. So he had those two different people he was writing to sort of keep him sane. But fortunately, it wasn't all bad for him in Korea. He was given the opportunity to finish up the rest of his service in a non-commissioned officer school. How are you doing? And so he jumped at the opportunity to get off the front lines and actually start teaching. And it was through this non-commissioned officer school he started working with in Korea that he actually found out he loved teaching adults. So when he did eventually finish his service there, he got back to the States and went back to school to finish up his degree and eventually become a teacher, specifically a teacher for other adults. So it wasn't all bad for him, but it was still pretty bad. He didn't talk much about his time in Korea, mostly for good reason. And you know, when he got back too, there weren't any like parades or ceremonies or anything to welcome the returning soldiers home. Not like what they saw for the Second World War. This was kind of no one really knew why they were there. No one really knew if they came home, except for the families who lost loved ones. For them, they knew who was coming home and maybe who wasn't.